The unexpected encounter. The smell of burnt metal and ozone lingered in the air of Outpost 9, a worn-out space station at the edges of human-controlled space. Jake Hawkins wiped the sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of grease behind, squinting at the defective energy coupling before him, wishing it would cooperate. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered, giving the coupling a light tap with his wrench. The device came to life, emitting a faint blue glow. Jake allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. At 32 years old, Jake was the youngest and possibly the most skilled mechanic on Outpost 9. However, his talent for repairs had not translated into financial success. The station, like its inhabitants, struggled to stay afloat in the vast economic ocean of the galaxy. A sudden tremor shook the station, nearly knocking Jake over. Warning klaxons blared, their shrill cries echoing through the metal corridors. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, hastily packing his tools into his belt and running toward the source of the commotion. The station's docking bay was in chaos. Technicians and dock workers scattered like frightened fish as a massive ship, unlike anything Jake had ever seen, limped into the hangar. Its sleek, organic lines were marred by burn marks and open wounds along its hull. Despite its damage, the ship radiated an aura of power and alien beauty. As the ship settled onto the docking clamps with a groan of protesting metal, Jake felt compelled to move closer, his mechanic's mind already cataloging the damage, estimating repair times, and marveling at the strange technology before him. The ship's airlock opened with a hiss, releasing a sweet-smelling cloud of vapor. Jake's jaw dropped as three figures emerged from the mist. They were unmistakably feminine, but on a scale that defied human norms. Each stood at least 9 feet tall, with powerful builds that spoke of strength and agility. Their iridescent skin shimmered, shifting between deep purple and vibrant green, and their hair seemed to float around their heads as if suspended in water. The lead alien, with deep indigo skin, examined the docking bay with piercing silver eyes. When her gaze fell on Jake, he felt a jolt of electricity run down his spine. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else, desperation. Her voice boomed, causing several nearby workers to flinch. "Are you in charge here?" Jake looked around and realized most of the senior staff had conveniently disappeared. He squared his shoulders and stepped forward. "I'm not in charge, but I can help. Name's Jake Hawkins, head mechanic." The alien woman's eyes narrowed as she evaluated him. "I am Captain Sarah of the Stellar Sovereignty. Our ship requires immediate repairs. We have limited time and resources. Can you help us?" Jake's mind raced. The alien ship's technology was far beyond anything he had worked on before. It would be the challenge of a lifetime, and yet the risk was enormous. Who knew what problems these aliens might bring to Outpost 9? But when he looked at Captain Sarah and her crew, he saw not just powerful alien warriors, but beings in need. Their ship was their lifeline, just as Outpost 9 was his. In that moment, the decision was simple. "I'll do my best," Jake said, offering a confident smile. "But I'll need to know what I'm dealing with. May I take a look?" Captain Sarah exchanged glances with her companions before nodding curtly. "Very well, human, but be cautious. Our technology is not to be taken lightly. A single misstep could mean disaster for your entire station." As Jake followed the towering aliens onto their ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something much larger than a simple repair job. The air hummed with energy, and strange lights pulsed along the corridors. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly alien. "So," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady, "what brings a ship like yours to our humble outpost? Must be something pretty serious to risk landing in your condition." The smallest of the aliens, though still taller than Jake, answered. Her pale green skin bore swirling patterns that seemed to shift and flow. "We are being pursued by those who wish to see our mission fail. The fate of entire worlds hangs in the balance, human. You may prove to be more crucial than you can imagine." Jake whistled low. "No pressure, then. All right, ladies, Let's see what we're dealing with. I may not know much about alien politics or interstellar warfare, but I do know machines. And every machine, no matter how advanced, follows certain principles. When they reached the engine room, Jake's eyes widened in awe. The heart of the alien ship was a pulsating sphere of energy, surrounded by intricate patterns of light and metal. It looked like nothing he had ever seen before, and yet he could feel its rhythm, its purpose. Incredible, he breathed, rolling up his sleeves. He turned to Captain Sarah with a determined smile. All right, Captain, let's get to work. I may just be a simple human mechanic, but I have a feeling we're about to make history together. The alien women exchanged surprised glances as Jake began assessing the damage systems. Despite the daunting task ahead, he couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. After all, this was what humanity did best: rise to the occasion, solve the impossible, and perhaps change the course of the galaxy in the process. Jake didn't yet know that his decision to help these mysterious aliens would not only test his skills as a mechanic, but also propel him into an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. As he worked, the stars outside Outpost 9 seemed to shine just a little brighter, as if anticipating the remarkable events about to unfold. Jake's hands moved with practiced precision over the alien technology, his brow furrowed in concentration. 3 days had passed since Captain Sarah and her crew's arrival, and the ship's engine room had become his second home. The pulsating energy core hummed a constant, otherworldly melody as he worked. "Pass me the flux calibrator, would you?" Jake called, his voice muffled as he leaned deeply into an access panel. Lyra, the green-skinned alien who had become his unofficial assistant, handed him a tool that looked more like a living crystal than any wrench he had ever used. "You're adapting quickly to our technology, Jake," Lyra observed, her voice a melodic mix of curiosity and approval. Jake emerged from the panel, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thanks. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, but it has a logic to it. It's not just machinery, it's almost alive." He paused, realizing how strange that sounded. "Is that as crazy as it sounds?" Lyra's lips curved into a smile. "Not at all. Our ships are indeed partially organic. They grow and adapt like we do. That's why repairing them requires more than just mechanical skill. It requires understanding and intuition." As Jake processed this information, Captain Sarah entered the engine room, her commanding presence filling the space. "Report," she demanded, her silver eyes fixed on Jake. Jake straightened up, suddenly aware of the grease stains on his coveralls. "We're making progress, Captain. The main propulsion system is back online, and I've sealed most of the breaches. But there's something strange about the damage. It's not just from weapon fire. Some of these systems seem to have been infected, for lack of a better word." Sarah's expression darkened. "You're more perceptive than we expected, human. The damage to our ship is indeed not entirely from battle. We are being pursued by an enemy who wages war not just with weapons, but with a technological plague." Jake's mind reeled at the implications. A plague that affects machines? Is that even possible? "In our part of the galaxy, it is a harsh reality," Lyra interjected. "The Void Corsairs, our pursuers, have weaponized a form of self-replicating nanite. They corrupt and consume any technology they touch, turning it against its users." The pieces began to fall into place in Jake's mind, the strange, almost cancerous growths he had found in some of the ship's systems, the way certain components seemed to resist repair. "That's why you risk coming to a human outpost," Jake realized. "Your own ports might be compromised, but our technology is too primitive to be affected." Captain Sarah nodded, a hint of respect in her eyes. "Correct. Your isolation, which you may have seen as a weakness, is in fact your greatest strength in this conflict. The Corsairs overlook your species, considering you too technologically inferior to be a threat. They do not realize that this very inferiority makes you immune to their greatest weapon." Jake let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. Never thought being behind the times would be an advantage." He paused, a thought occurring to him. But wait, if these nanites are so dangerous, am I at any risk working on your ship? Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, the touch sending an unexpected warmth through him. No, Jake. We've contained the affected areas. Besides, your biology is incompatible with the nanites. You're safer than any of us in this fight. As this information sank in, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. Captain Sarah rushed to a nearby console, her fingers dancing over the holographic display. "Void signatures detected," she growled. "They've found us sooner than expected." Jake's heart raced. "How much time do we have?" "Hours at most," Sarah replied, her voice taut with tension. "We need maximum power to our defensive systems and engines immediately." Jake nodded, his mind already racing through the possibilities. "I have an idea, but it's risky. Maybe we can use the organic nature of your ship to our advantage. If we can stimulate rapid growth in the undamaged sections, we might be able to isolate and cut out the infected parts entirely." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's brilliant, but incredibly dangerous. The shock to the ship's systems could be catastrophic." "Do it," Captain Sarah ordered, her gaze fixed on Jake. "We have no other choice. Lyra, assist him in any way you can. I must prepare the crew for battle." As Sarah left the engine room, Jake turned to Lyra, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "All right, let's do this. Show me everything you know about your ship's biological systems. We're about to perform some extreme surgery." For the next several hours, Jake and Lyra worked in perfect synchrony. Jake's human intuition and mechanical expertise blended seamlessly with Lyra's deep understanding of her ship's organic nature. They managed to stimulate rapid growth in healthy systems, carefully removing the corrupted sections, and rerouted energy flows in ways that pushed the limits of both human and alien engineering. As they worked, Jake found himself opening up to Lyra, sharing stories of his life on Outpost 9, his dreams of exploring the stars, and the loneliness that had driven him to become the best mechanic in the sector. Lyra, in turn, spoke of her people's struggle against the Void Corsairs, the worlds they had seen fall to the technological plague, and the hope they clung to for a better future. "You know," Jake said as they carefully grafted a new energy conduit into place, "a week ago, my biggest worry was paying rent. Now I'm helping save the galaxy from space pirates with a technological virus. Funny how life works." Lyra's laughter was like the chiming of crystals. "The universe has a way of putting us where we need to be, Jake. Perhaps this is where you were always meant to end up." As the ship systems came back online, stronger and more resilient than before, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he had ever known. He had done more than just fix a machine. He had helped heal a living ship and, in the process, forged a connection with beings from across the stars. But there was no time to celebrate. As the final systems powered up, Captain Sarah's voice rang out over the intercom. "All hands to battle stations. Void Corsair ships are approaching. Prepare for immediate combat." Jake and Lyra exchanged a look of determination tinged with fear. The real test of their work was about to begin, and the fate of not just a ship but potentially entire worlds hung in the balance. The battle begins. The corridors of the ship vibrated with nervous energy as Jake ran alongside Lyra toward the bridge. The crew members, each towering over Jake, moved with practiced efficiency, their movements a choreographed dance of battle preparations. When they burst onto the bridge, Jake's breath caught in his throat. Through the expansive view screen, he saw the vast emptiness of space, now torn apart by the approach of the Void Corsair fleet. Their ships were monstrosities of twisted metal and pulsating sickly green energy, a stark contrast to the sleek organic design of Captain Sarah's ship. "Status report." Captain Sarah barked, her silver eyes fixed on the approaching threat. Jake stepped forward, surprised at himself with his own audacity. "The ship's primary systems are online, Captain. We've managed to isolate and remove about 60% of the nanite infection. It's not perfect, but it's the best we could do with the time we had." Sarah nodded, a flash of approval in her eyes. "It will have to be enough. Lyra, take your station. Jake, stay on the bridge. Your understanding of our ship's current condition may prove vital." As Jake took a position at a console that seemed to grow out of the floor itself, he felt a mix of pride and terror. He was about to witness an interstellar battle firsthand, and somehow he had become a key part of it. "Void Corsair ships are entering weapons range," one of the crew members announced, their voice tense. "Raise shields. Prepare main cannons," Sarah commanded, her voice clear and authoritative. "Let's show these plague bearers the strength of a united front." The ship came alive around them, energy coursing through its veins like blood. Jake could feel the vibrations through the deck plates, a testament to the power at their disposal. Suddenly, the view screen lit up with streaks of sickly green energy as the Corsair ships opened fire. The ship shuddered under the assault but held firm. "Shields holding at 85%, Lyra reported, her voice steady. "The reinforcements Jake implemented are working." Jake allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. The battle had only just begun. For what felt like hours, the space around them became a deadly dance of energy beams and explosive munitions. Captain Sarah's ship maneuvered with grace, returning fire with precision. But the Corsair ships were formidable, their vessels seemingly able to ignore damage that should have incapacitated them. "How are they still functioning?" Jake muttered, watching as a Corsair ship regenerated a massive hole in its hull. "They're adapting," Lyra finished for him, her voice grim. "The nanites allow their ships to evolve during battle, learning from every hit they take." Jake's mind raced. If the Corsairs could adapt, then maybe they could too. "Captain," he called out, an idea forming. "What if we could use their own trick against them?" Sarah turned to him, intrigued despite the chaos of the battle. "Explain." Quickly, Jake outlined his plan. "The nanites we removed from your ship are still aboard, contained, right? What if we could reprogram them? Turn them into a weapon against the Corsairs?" Lyra's eyes widened. "It's possible, but incredibly dangerous. One wrong move, and we could infect our own ship. We're running out of options," Sarah growled as another explosion rocked the ship. "Shields at 40%. Do it." What followed was a frantic race against time. As the battle raged on around them, Jake and Lyra worked feverishly to reprogram the nanites they had salvaged. Jake's unorthodox human problem-solving meshed with Lyra's intricate knowledge of the alien technology to create something entirely new. "Done!" Jake exclaimed, holding up a glowing containment unit. "We've got a swarm of reprogrammed nanites ready to target the Corsairs. They'll disrupt their adaptive capabilities and cripple their ships." Captain Sarah wasted no time. "Load it into the main cannon. Prepare to fire on my command." As the weapon was readied, the situation outside grew dire. 2 of the 5 Corsair ships had been destroyed, but the remaining 3 had adapted to most of their attacks. The shields were failing, and reports of hull breaches were coming in from multiple decks. "Captain," the weapons officer called. "Nanite payload ready to fire." Sarah's silver eyes narrowed, locking onto the lead Corsair ship. "Wait for it, wait. Fire." The ship trembled as the modified nanites were launched. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a wave of metallic sand, the nanites swarmed the lead Corsair ship. Its sickly green glow flickered and died, replaced by scattered patches of lifeless metal. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, her voice filled with awe and hope. The remaining Corsair ships faltered as the nanites spread from vessel to vessel, disrupting their systems. For the first time, the Void Corsairs appeared vulnerable. "Press the advantage," Sarah ordered. "All weapons fire at will." What had been a desperate defense became a coordinated assault. Captain Sarah's ship, battered but intact, unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The Corsair ships, unable to adapt or regenerate, crumbled under the onslaught. As the final Corsair ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, cheers erupted across the bridge. Jake found himself caught in a celebratory embrace from Lyra, her joy palpable. Even Captain Sarah nodded at him with respect. But their triumph was short-lived. As the adrenaline of battle faded, the reality of their situation set in. The ship was heavily damaged, and reports of injuries among the crew poured in. "We've won the battle," Sarah said, her voice heavy with command. "But the war is far from over. The Corsairs will send more ships once they realize this fleet has been destroyed." Jake looked out at the starfield, now littered with the debris of battle. "So, what do we do now?" Sarah's gaze was steely with determination. "We repair, we plan, and we take the fight to them. The Void Corsairs have plagued this sector for too long. It's time to end this, once and for all." As the weight of their victory and the challenges ahead settled over the bridge, Jake realized that his adventure was far from over. He had stepped into a galaxy-wide conflict and had somehow become an integral part of it. The final assault. In the days following the battle, the ship buzzed with activity. Jake worked tirelessly alongside the alien crew, repairing damage, reinforcing weakened systems, and implementing upgrades based on what they had learned from the Corsairs. "You know," Jake said to Lyra as they recalibrated the shield generators, "I never thought I'd say this, but I think I understand your ship better than any human technology I've worked on." Lyra's iridescent skin shimmered with amusement. "Perhaps it's because you're not just repairing the ship, Jake. You're connecting with it, almost as if you were part of the crew." Her words struck a chord. Jake realized that somewhere along the way, this alien ship had become more than just a job or an adventure. It had become a home. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by Captain Sarah's voice over the intercom. "All senior personnel in Jake Hawkins report to the strategy room immediately." When Jake entered the strategy room, he was struck by the seriousness in Sarah's expression. Holographic displays lit up with star maps and fleet movements. "We've received intelligence from our allies," Sarah began without preamble. "The Void Corsairs are amassing for a major offensive. They plan to strike at the heart of the stellar sovereignty." A murmur of concern rippled through the gathered crew. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "But that's not all," Sarah continued, her silver eyes gleaming with determination. "Our victory has not gone unnoticed. Other species that have long hesitated to oppose the Corsairs are now joining our cause. We have an opportunity to end this war once and for all." The holographic display shifted to show a massive space station orbiting a dying star. "This is the Corsairs' primary base of operations, hidden in the Chirac Nebula. Our mission is to lead an assault on this station and destroy their nanite production facilities." Jake's mind reeled at the scale of the operation. "Captain," he said, surprising himself by speaking up, "even with allies, we'll be outnumbered. How can we possibly succeed?" Sarah's gaze landed on Jake, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "That, Mr. Hawkins, is your specialty. Your unconventional thinking and understanding of both our technology and the Corsairs' weaknesses make you uniquely qualified to help plan this assault." Over the next several hours, Jake found himself deeply involved in a war council unlike anything he had ever imagined. He suggested ways to counter the Corsairs' adaptive technology, proposed modifications to Allied ships to resist nanite infection, and even came up with a daring plan to use radiation from the dying star as a weapon against the Corsair base. The day of the assault came far too quickly. Jake stood on the bridge, watching as ships from a dozen species gathered around them. It was a sight that would have been impossible just weeks ago, a united front against a common enemy. "All ships, report readiness," Captain Sarah commanded, her voice calm yet brimming with authority. One by one, the Allied ships signaled their readiness. Sarah nodded, her silver eyes shining with determination. "Then let's end the Corsair threat once and for all. All ships, engage." As the fleet moved into the Chirac Nebula, the Corsair base loomed ahead, a massive, shadowy structure orbiting the dim glow of a dying star. Almost immediately, the Corsairs launched their counterattack. Their twisted ships swarmed out of the base, pulsing with the sickly green light of their adaptive nanites. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had experienced. The void of space lit up with the fire of energy weapons. Shields flared and failed, and ships from both sides exploded in spectacular bursts of light. Jake found himself running from one system to another, implementing last-minute adjustments and repairs to keep their ship in the fight. "We need to get closer to deploy the disruptor charges," one of the crew shouted over the chaos. "But that stellar weapon will tear us apart before we can get into range," another responded. Jake's mind raced as he recalled everything he had learned about the ship's organic systems. "The hull," he said suddenly. "If we can stimulate rapid growth and regeneration, we might be able to withstand the star's energy long enough to get into position." Lyra's eyes widened as she grasped his plan. "It's risky, but it could work. We'll be pushing the ship beyond its limits." "Do it," Sarah ordered without hesitation. What followed was a harrowing journey into the heart of the maelstrom. Jake and Lyra worked in perfect synchrony, coaxing the ship's living systems to grow and heal faster than the star's radiation could damage them. The ship groaned and shuddered under the strain, but it held together as they pushed closer and closer to the Corsair base. "Now!" Sarah shouted as they entered range. "Deploy the disruptors." Jake activated the charges they had prepared. A swarm of reprogrammed nanites tailored to disrupt the Corsair's adaptive technology. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Corsair defenses flickered and failed, leaving their base vulnerable. "All ships, concentrate fire on the primary reactor," Sarah commanded. The combined firepower of the Allied fleet rained down on the Corsair base. For a moment, it seemed to hold. Then, with a silent, blinding flash, the reactor detonated, consuming the base in a massive explosion. The Corsair threat was over. Cheers erupted across the bridge as the realization of their victory set in. Jake found himself enveloped in a crushing hug from Lyra, her joy infectious. Even Captain Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she nodded at him. But their celebration was cut short by the alarms blaring across the ship. "The Star," one of the crew shouted. "The Corsair weapon destabilized its core. It's going supernova. All ships, emergency retreat." Sarah ordered, "Get as far away from the blast radius as you can." Jake worked feverishly alongside the crew to keep the battered ship together as they fled the dying star. The view screen filled with the terrifying beauty of the star's death, its massive shockwave racing toward them. Just as it seemed they wouldn't make it, their ship lurched into faster-than-light travel, the shockwave nipping at their heels. When they emerged into safe space, the bridge fell silent, the weight of what they had accomplished settling over everyone. In the days that followed, Jake worked tirelessly to help repair the ship and tend to the wounded. But even amidst the chaos, a sense of camaraderie and triumph filled the air. "You know," Jake said to Lyra as they recalibrated one of the ship's systems, "I never thought I'd be part of something like this. A week ago, I was just a mechanic on Outpost 9. Now..." Lyra's iridescent skin shimmered warmly. "Now, you're a hero, Jake Hawkins." Their moment was interrupted by Captain Sarah's voice over the intercom. "Jake Hawkins, report to the council chamber immediately." When Jake entered the chamber, he found himself standing before the Stellar Sovereignty's High Council, a gathering of beings from countless species, all looking at him with a mix of respect and curiosity. Captain Sarah stepped forward. "Jake Hawkins has proven that humanity, despite its relative technological inferiority, possesses qualities that make them invaluable allies. I propose formal diplomatic relations with Earth, with Jake as our first ambassador." A murmur rippled through the council. The lead counselor, a crystalline being of pure energy, addressed Jake. "You have done a great service, not only to the sovereignty, but to the entire galaxy. But we must ask, are you prepared for the responsibility of being the bridge between your world and ours?" Jake glanced at Lyra, who gave him an encouraging smile, then back at Sarah, whose silver eyes shone with quiet pride. Taking a deep breath, Jake stepped forward. "I'm just a mechanic," he said, "but I've learned that sometimes, It's the ones who think differently who make the biggest difference. If I can help humanity find its place among the stars, then I'll do it." The council erupted in applause, and Jake felt a strange mix of pride and humility. His journey, which had begun as a simple repair job, had transformed him into something far greater. As the Epsilon Voyagers set course for Earth, Jake Hawkins prepared for the next chapter of his extraordinary adventure. The stars, once distant and untouchable, now seemed closer than ever, filled with endless possibilities.